joining Dr. Rabia Amir. I'll introduce Dr. Rabia first, before we formally get started. Dr. Rabia Amir is Assistant Professor of English at the Faculty of Arts and Humanities, Islamabad. She's currently conducting her postdoc research at Istanbul. Was that, how do you pronounce that? Sabahattin Zem University, is that right?
Yeah,
okay.
It's Istanbul Sabahattin Zem University.
Right. She's a former awardee of PhD Research Fellowship at the Department of English and Comparative Literature, Columbia University, New York. With a teaching experience of more than 20 years at different levels, she's an HEC-approved supervisor and recipient of the Best University Teacher Award for the year 2021 to 2022. Besides her publications in reputed literary, humanities and social sciences journals and presentations at numerous international conferences, she also contributes poetry to magazines and anthologies. She has done several voiceovers for documentaries, and through her various scholarly activities from the platform of Sophie Forum, faculty development programs and conferences, Dr. Rabia has initiated and conducted several academic discussions. Her contributions include book chapters, poetry, petite poetic memoirs about the times of her growing up in Lahore, and several seminal articles about problematizing the IET in the debates on Kashmir and Palestine. With her research domains ranging from American fiction, Native American literature, post 9/11 Pakistani fiction, Middle Eastern and Kashmiri literature, and visual literary narratives, film studies, and post-colonial environmental ethics. Her recent book, Environmental Ethics, Life Narratives from Kashmir and Palestine, which is on display here, as you can see, is an epistemological theorizing to the debates of environmental humanities and decoloniality. Dr. Rabia also we have a long time friendship and relation going back to when we were together in Peshawar, which was a very, very long time ago. I don't even know how many years it has been. So it has been a pleasure knowing Rabia, and I'm pretty sure that you're going to learn a lot from her today. So over to Dr. Rabia for now. We will come back to Dr. Bhairavan at the end, and I'm very much hopeful that you will enjoy this session. Her book is on display here, and we have a representative from the publisher here too, and there's a discounted price on this book as well. So we are buying it for the library, and I hope other people get it too. So over to you, Dr. Rabia.
Thank you so much, Aisha. I'm really gratified, and yes, our friendship goes back many years, and I really cherish those times, and I still cherish it. So thank you so much. My today's talk, as I'm going to display here, but let me just give you a disclaimer right in the beginning. I'm not going to do a lot of paper reading. Rather, I would be doing very less of it towards the end, perhaps. Right now, what I'm going to do is, because I want to familiarize ourselves with these concepts and these emerging concepts and emerging genres in literature, in film, which we would be discussing shortly. So there you go. I am presenting here. And the title of my presentation, as is displayed on the screen, I hope it is visible to everybody. Is it? I hope
yes, we can see it. Yes.
All right. There's one question, Aisha. I would, before I even start with my presentation, I would like to ask the audience one small little question. And I would appreciate if anybody can, answer me for that.
Sure.
Are we familiar with, you must be all familiar with the concept of Red Indian, yes?
Yes.
Yes. So so today's talk is going to be a kind of a myth buster for some of those concepts also. So let's begin. So thank you, Aisha, again for giving me this opportunity, and Area Studies Center, QUAID-I-AZAM University, for giving me this opportunity here. My topic is film, literature, and environmental realities. And, I'm trying to look into some docudramas from Palestinian and Native American realms. But before I venture deep into this, we would be discussing some basics. So, and some, we are going to check our prior knowledge. So, this is a small, brainstorming display, that the greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, as we all know, but it is the illusion of knowledge. So we have been fed, and we have been, and as the series of these displays and slideshow progresses, you will see that we have been indoctrinated with many different types of works that, let me just put it down. Okay. So, as you may see, as my book is there, I tried to find out, because, of course, a scholar, a research scholar, that's his or her basic aim, in order to see what is the background or the reality behind this, veneer of the information that is bombarded to us through social media, through, prior to this, prior to this fiasco, which is unfolding in Gaza, as you must all be following it, which is too excruciating to explain. This book, of course, is a fruit of 5 years of my rigorous and historiographic study, and all into Kashmir and Palestinian realms. And I took memoirs as my main stay, in order to look into what is happening in Kashmir and Palestine. And I'm sure if you have a copy of this book, it'll be a good read, and it'll be quite eye-opening, as it was for me when I was doing all that study and research. So, in my different talks, I have come up with certain aspects which are, I have to just switch off my phone. I'm sorry, I forgot to do it. I hope we all do it here. So, yeah. So in all my talks and different book discussions, as you can see displayed on the screen also, I have brought forward through this book certain, these are the take home points, some of the take home points. So basically, it is like Hindutva and Zionism. What are they? They are both exclusionary. Both are expansionist. Both instrumentalize religion. Both seek to build nations with single race, culture, and language. Both weaponize any criticism as a phobia for the religion, not the ideology. So some of the findings that I discussed in this book, of course, I can't just talk in detail, but these are some of the points. For example, international community must take serious cognizance of the evolving situation, of the enormity of the humanitarian crisis. Now the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is the writing on the wall. However, if you just go some months back, I don't think that we were really bothered, or we were really, uh, cognizant of the gravity of the situation, unless and until we were deep into this research and into the study of Palestine. So the other finding about Kashmir and Palestine in this book was account for the shocking realities that special rapporteurs keep releasing, and that is, of course, the UN spokespersons and the people that they send there as to take to report all these. So special rapporteurs, if you look at any of the rapporteurs reports of any of the previous years, open them up, and you would be in for all these shocking realities in both these realms. Then military violence and war crimes call for the International Judicial Tribunal. This is what I suggested in my book. And modern it is and I also contend that it is a modern day Holocaust, and yet never given any name in this capacity, nor the massacres going on in this land are ever brought to the light of justice as the Nuremberg trials. And as we know, this is a quote from the Perpetrator Studies. That's a very recent book of 2019. It goes with that Nuremberg trials saw the first large-scale investigations into the psyche and motivations of perpetrators of state violence and shaped the discourse on perpetrators, legal and moral accountability, and crimes against humanity, a concept that was coined in response to the Holocaust. So now we at this in this present scenario, we can really appreciate the depth of these words. Of course, when we say there should be no Holocaust, we should mean for everybody around the world. And that's something which is now coming out in different places around the world. And then I also suggested informed world opinion about the interpolated Kashmir and Palestine reality may be helpful for Kashmir and Palestine. And that's something which is coming out in the case of Palestine more so than Kashmir, which, of course, if you go into depth, you get to know that also. Time of reenacting the Nuremberg trials, this is what my suggestion was, that it is now time to reenact the Nuremberg trials. I'm just taking that nomenclature, but meaning thereby that there should be some judicial tribunal for this and a clear declaration of the environmental ethic of these places, may that be Kashmir, may that be Palestine, may that be Native Americans, whatever. So Palestinian writers and authors' lifelong pursuit has been, this was another finding, has been to discover how his homeland was destroyed, but he was also hopeful that justice would prevail one day and they would be able to return just like the birds. And these are the words of one of the writers from Palestine, and he's a historian also, one of the effectees of this whole massacre which happened. So he uses these words, as the birds would fly out of their nest in out of the well, and they try to come back into that. So now, since our topic is film and it's about literature, film, and docudramas. So looking into these, I don't know how many of you are familiar with this movie, The Battle of Algiers. It is one of my cornerstones in my PhD courses. So I have integrated it in my course also, PhD course. That the Battle of Algiers, it was a movie, or it's in 1966. So it is one of the most discussed films in the history of political cinema. And Alan O'Leary has written this book in 2019 with the same title, The Battle of Algiers, 1966, as it is. So his book is actually a critique and an understanding that why, and this is the question that he starts off with, why study the Battle of Algiers once again? It was made by Italian directors and filmmakers in 1966. So Alan O'Leary is arguing in his book of 2019 that why this Battle of Algiers is important to study. All right. So that's why with this basic, question in mind, I also bring to you some of the, things or the films that have shaped our 20th century imagination. Just as I just asked you a minute ago, are you familiar with the concept of red Indians? And you all said so. And look at this picture. Now, this is a picture, a silent film, the Indian Wars, and this is refought. It was aired in 1914. So it was American silent Western film. It was one of the first. And look at this person who's trying to look, beyond, or look out into the horizon in order to find something. And you can see the wilderness around him. I hope it's all visible there. And now look at this second picture from the movie itself, and it is a signature, scene of any Western movie. I'm sure that we all can appreciate this thing. That there are people who are asking, who are coming after him, and he's trying to flee that. So the whole narrative of this movie is that the Indians wars refought, that the Indians, the Native Americans, they are they're fighting the people who are there as to civilize them. So this was 1914 movie, and now this I'm just taking one or two basic examples. And this is 1925 movie, The Vanishing American. And if you can see that Zane Grey's Vanishing American, so he wrote this book, The Vanishing American, and then this movie was, or the screenplay is written by Zane Grey. And look at this, another picture of this, and you can see that a white woman and the Vanishing American. Now this is a trope which is being constructed, that either they are red Indians or they are the hooligans who are going after a person, or a normal person, and then there's this Vanishing American. This is an entity which is vanishing. And this is the writer, Zane Grey, who was an American author and a dentist. And this is the narrative which is written down. I'm afraid there is no other way. These Indians are my friends. The white man's narrative was that they are my friends, but I must send them to their death. So, and all these earlier movies, 1914 movie, 1925 movie, 1930s movies, there are many other, I'm just bringing two here. So they were working on this Herbert Spencer's, famous dictum that we have an unmistakable proof that throughout all past, there has been a ceaseless devouring of the weak by the strong, as if, he's justifying it, a survival of the fittest. So there has been the whole 20th century and the beginning of the 21st century also. This survival of the fittest is something which is embedded in us. And we tend to take it, the whole humanity has taken it to heart, that it is the survival of the fittest concept, and that's how it is. So that was the Native American, from the films from the Native American realms. There is another, coming to the Palestine, because I'm now going to focus on Native Americans and Palestine. So films that shaped our 20th century imagination, Leon Uris' novel, Exodus. It was a novel in 1958, which became a movie, Exodus, in 1960. And as you can see in the pictures, the typical Arab who's trying to detonate this van, which is full of people, unarmed people, Jewish people, and he's the perpetrator. Just like, this whole story today has unfolded in front of us in terms of Hamas and all that. All right, and look at this. Now, this is the empathetic side, that the woman is carrying a child and she's like arguing that, you won't let us go to our land, things like this. And then this is a little bit more vocal scene from the movie where he's urging everybody to be strong enough to claim that their land, and claim which land. There's another picture there, and as you can see in in this picture here, it is written in Hebrew. A board is written in Hebrew. People are, thronging everywhere, and they are trying to establish their place in the world, in this place of Palestine, and they're trying to make their home as Israel. And again, now if this particular picture, which is like a scene from the movie, of course, is a typical white woman and a typical semblance of Arabs, right? And it reminds you of the that Orientalism or Goldzier's Orientalism. We are all very familiar with Edward Said's Orientalism, 1978, which was a page turner in the history. However, Hamid Dabashi also reminds us about Goldzier, who had talked about Orientalism way before even Edward Said. Well, that's just a passing remark. Anyway, so films that shaped our 20th century imagination, again in terms of Kashmir or India especially, we have Jawaharlal Nehru's Discovery of India, a book written in 1946. But this Doordarshan program, it was called the this Bharat Ek Khoj, right? So this Doordarshan whole program with a lot of episodes was aired in 1988 in order to this was a picture or filmic depiction of Discovery of India, of the book Discovery of India. All right. And of course, there are many fabricated and concocted narratives that are woven into this narrative of this Bharat Ek Khoj also. Well, I'm not going to talk about this in detail, but this is just to give you an idea what it is, what the films or how they have changed our understanding of the 20th century. So now we know about the Red Indian concept. However, it was in 1970s, around 1970s, that there were many writers, American writers like Nehart, like this D. Brown, who was an American novelist. He was an historian. He was a librarian. And his most famous work, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, that is a massacre which took place in 1890. Right. So his book, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, details the history of the United States westward colonization of the continent between 1830 and 1890 from the point of view of Native Americans. Now, this is the first time that some of the writers, some of the historians, like Wilder Noria Jr., he's a big historian, and I think Ma'am Aisha can be my witness. There are two articles in two of your, in your journal of Pakistan Journal of American Studies, area studies, that have been published, my own two articles. So if you would like to, you can just refer to them, and they were quite eye-opening. They were for me, and I'm sure that they would be for anybody else who would try to read. So D. Brown, he's, in his books, is about the Indians knew that life was equated with the earth and its resources. So in other words, we have not internalized this fact that Indians, the native Indians of the soil of America, they had beautiful systems. We have more internalized the Western movies, that they are the ruffians, they are the hooligans, they are the ones who attack the white person, and the white person is trying to safeguard itself. The women are trying to safeguard from these naked people, right? So, however, D. Brown has busted this myth in 1970. Although these books, they don't become the mainstream understanding and the mainstream um, you know media or anything like that. However, it's time that we need to go into it. So that Indians knew that life was equated with the earth and its resources, that America was a paradise, and they could not comprehend why the intruders, those that white man from the east, were determined to destroy all that was Indian as well as America itself. So and interestingly, and that's something which I quote in one of my papers that I published with you, this is a quote of no less than Christopher Columbus, the man who was supposedly discovering America. So D. Brown is quoting him, and it's a beautiful quote. And Christopher Columbus says, "So tractable, so peaceable, and are these people that I swear to your majesties." Now he's writing to Isabel and Ferdinand in 1490. If you remember that movie 1492, Conquest of Paradise, I'm sure that you might have gone through it. It's also a must watch, right? So this, so tractable, so peaceable are these people that I swear to your majesties, there's not in the world a better nation. He's talking about the native Indians. They love their neighbors as themselves, and their discourse ever sweet and gentle and accompanied with a smile. And though it is true that they are naked, yet their manners are decorous and praiseworthy. So these are the words of Christopher Columbus. But do we know about these words? Do we come across these words as often as any other narrative or as the American mainstream history? No, we do not. All right. Coming to the Palestinian chapter, we see now this book is written in 2007, Married to Another Man, Israel's Dilemma in Palestine. And this is the picture of Moshe Dayan, an Israeli military leader and politician, and as commander of the Jerusalem front in the 1948, when this Nakba happened. When this Nakba means I'm sure it's also used in Urdu also, nakab lagana, right? So nakba is that you take cover in the night and you do your work stealthily. So that is why this catastrophe Nakba in 1948, which the Jews Jewish militias they did, was called Nakba. And however, as we saw a little bit earlier, that Exodus was a movie in which the femme fatale, white woman and the white people or the Jews, they were being persecuted by the Palestinians. However, historians like Sitta remind us that there was absolutely no match. If you have thousands and thousands on one side and 100 on one side, and they do not even have the weapons of the latest weapons, how would they? So he was the chief of the staff, the Israel Defense Forces, during the 1956 Suez crisis. And this is a quote that he writes and is quoted in this book in 1956. And I would like us to read it together. And he says, and it is written, "Let us not today fling accusations at the murderers." If there were some people who were retaliating, so he's calling them murderers. Who are we that we should argue against their hatred? For 8 years now, from 1948 to 1956, right? For 8 years now, they sit in their refugee camps in Gaza, and before their very eyes, we turn into our homestead, the land and the village in which they and their forefathers have lived. We are a generation of settlers, and without a steel helmet and the cannon, we cannot plant a tree and build a home. Let us not shrink back when we see the hatred fermenting and filling the lives of hundreds of thousands of Arabs who sit all around us. Let us not avert our gaze so that our hand shall not slip. This is the fate of our generation, the choice of our life, to be prepared and armed, strong and tough, or otherwise the sword will slip from our fist and our life will be snuffed out. So can we appreciate that these words, they are so true even today? This is exactly what they're doing, right? So, and this is just an interesting conversation in one of the historians by Jonathan Schneer, and this is an episode in 1915 when, if you remember, the Balfour Declaration that happened in 1909, that was passed in 1919, right? But this is an episode in 1915, and look at this conversation. It's just a conversational tone, and Sykes, Sir Sykes, later Sir Sykes, he was a young man. Sykes and Picot, they were two young men, and they were the ones who were the you can say the architects of this whole arrogating of the Ottoman Empire and everything, and the breaking down of the Arabs into all these sections. So this is a strategy he's spelling out, and he's saying, if we adopt a perfectly passive attitude, the Sharif, I think, will be killed. Sharif is from Arabia. Okay? All right. So, will be what? Asked Arthur Balfour, Sir Arthur Balfour. He's saying, will be killed, and a committee of Union and Progress nominee will be put in his place. That gives the Turks and their Germans Mecca. The Christians in Syria will be exterminated. Now, look at the multi-pronged strategy he's stating out. The anti-committee of Union of Progress elements will be destroyed among the Arabs. The intellectual, whoever is against a committee of Union and Progress, they would be destroyed among the Arabs. The intellectual Arabs will be hanged and shot. The Arab machine will be captured. Then we shall be confronted with the real danger of jihad. And he's being satirical here. But Sykes was preaching to the converted. So in other words, Sir Arthur Balfour is sitting there, other people of the parliament are sitting there in British Parliament, and Sykes is preaching to the converted. So to put it together, these are some of the things that we find in the Native American literatures. These are some of the, you can say, the motifs that we find in Native American literatures. And then in the next slide, I will talk about all the motifs that are there in the Palestinian literature. So the first is the motif of plights of loss of Indians, their lands, and their subsequent resistance, right from 1590s. Because, of course, this conquest of paradise was in 1492 by Christopher Columbus, so-called, right? And for 1 century, they were persecuted like anything. But later on, from 1590s to 1890, when their back was completely broken in 1890 with that book, as I mentioned earlier, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, in about 1890s massacre of Indians, right? So the other theme that comes out in many of the literatures of Native American, white man's greed, racism, moral depravity, and vindictiveness to annihilate the original people. Then American romanticism, they romanticize also for recreating either historic figures of Indians or their stereotypical portraits and negative images of Indian people, Red Indian, right? Limitations of white man's understanding, they were unable to understand the logic of the surviving tactics and the surviving strategies of the Indians, and they never appreciated them. So, and that's something I have discussed in detail in these articles. One very important thing is that they always gave the earth its due reverence and did not exploit it the way and the later Western colonialism has done. Raising rhetorical questions about identity and occasional comments on the adopted religion of Christianity, that is also a theme, and guilt and shame on being half-breeds. There were many intermarriages between Indians and Americans, the white men, and also forced marriages also, and rapes and all those things. So they are called half breeds, and due to American vindictiveness compelling them to adopt a satirical stance. So most of the literature of Native Americans adopts a satirical stance, like Sherman Alexie, like Thomas King. He's from Canada. Sherman Alexie is American Indian. So, dynamism of Indian culture and a source of subsequent providing alternative modes of conducting human affairs. This is something we tend to forget, or the colonizing powers tend to forget, that dynamism of Indian culture. They never even paid any heed to that dynamics of Indian culture and resource of subsequently providing alternative modes of conducting human affairs. Similarly, Nadia Abul Haj, she calls it as assumed nation. This whole Israeli, narrative that they are digging into, and they are trying to find the holy, chest and all those things. So, and this remaking of landscape, she completely negates in her 2001 book, and she calls it an assumed nation. So these are some of the themes which we find in these literatures: confiscation of and appropriation of rich agricultural land, their homes, their food, the sawing of olive trees that was there in Native American realms also, and of course they're going to resist. There would be subsequent resistance. Then there was another narrative which was generated, that was terra nullius. Golda Meir, no less than Golda Meir, fourth Prime Minister of Israel from 1969 to 1974. And what does she say? There was no such thing as a Palestinian people. It was not as though there was Palestinian people considering themselves as Palestinian people, and we came and threw them out and took their country away for them. They did not exist. So this was her, statement. Then this settler colonialism is another big theme which is discussed by many writers and auteurs. Auteurs are the ones who direct the films as well as write them, and so that's a technical term. Defining Jewishness with its genetic markers. This settler colonialism, they define Jewishness with the genetic markers, blatant racism against non-Jews, especially Palestinians, with epithets of dirty Jews. If you know that Jews were persecuted in Europe before 1948, and that was a big persecution. And even in the Second World War, of course, there was a big persecution. So this is, they were called dirty Jews. And these epithets, they started using them on Arabs as dirty Arabs. Then there is another theme or criticism which comes out of all these writings as well as films: mythological digs. There are they're looking into a mythology. They're trying to build a mythology that, yes, we are digging for, find that. But these are called mythological digs, again by Nadia Abul Hajj. She's one of the professors at Barnard College, so in Columbia University. So they are like, and according to her words, she says, they are like the relationship of Michelangelo's David to the block of the marble from which it was hewn. The statue is in the stone, but the background has to be carved away in order to see it. In other words, you have in your mind that you have to carve Michelangelo here, right? Michelangelo's David in this stone slab. And then you carve away the rest of the things. That's what they are doing in Palestine. This is what she's saying. And early years of statehood of Israeli colonial national imagination. Now, this is a very important point here, which have been quite resourcefully so directly tied to the media. Right? So even now, even today, sometimes Facebook puts restrictions, Instagram puts restrictions if you try to post some things. The anti-Semitism. This is not anti-Semitism. What is being done is anti-human. you know. So coming to the docudrama. Now, these were some of the things which were all familiar with. These films we are familiar with. These narratives we are familiar with, and these narratives we have internalized. However, docudrama performs the past. So I'm going to talk about two docudramas shortly, and we'll take maybe 4 5 more minutes, inshallah. So, docudramas performs the past. It is arenas of argument in films based on true stories. This is Stephen N. Lipkin's book. He says this in 2011 book. Docudramatic recreation is performance. Docudramas, films, and movies of the week based on true stories hinge their appeal on recreating actual people and events. And if you just recall some slides back, we had Exodus, we had The Vanishing American. Those were the commercial films which built a narrative and it was widely disseminated across the globe, right? However, these docudramas are emerging, they are getting more and more importance in today's world, and they are recreating and they are trying to base them on true stories. Docudrama works as a mode of presentation rather than a film genre, rather a means of representation, a way of offering argument about the past. So they also offer an argument about the past. Docudrama's reasoning from setting becomes a fundamental characteristic of how docudrama operates as a mode of representation, right? So basically, docudramas are a mode of representation, and they are trying to break the myths or bust the myths which the capitalistic cinema or the commercial cinema has built for the last century. Let's quickly talk about then what are they Amerindians, another word for Native Americans or the First Nations of Canada, and Palestinians imperatives. I'm just going to quote three here. Now, Mad Bear, one of the shamans, or one of the seers, Indian seer, he says, I also realized that there was one main principle, a paramount rule, basic to the continuing survival of humankind, basic even perhaps to the continuation of a living planet, right? Do not be competitive. Do not compete for survival. Compete, combat, and die. Cooperate, cultivate, and live. Such a beautiful and peaceful message comes out of this whole narrative, their understanding of human life. Then at another place, this is by another writer, and about another Native American. We warned you about, and this is basically Robert Stam. He is also a literary critic and film critic, basically. We warned you about the climate crisis. He says, we asked you to protect the forest. You didn't listen, and now it may be too late. So these are the imperatives which the Native Americans are giving. Whereas Shlomo Sand, again, he's a Jewish historian, and in his book, The Invention of the Jewish People in 2009, he has completely falsified the Jewish claims. He rather declares Palestinians to be the actual inhabitants of the land who embraced Judaism, Christianity, and Islam as the time progressed. And he says, and I quote, it is taught in schools and colleges, spread in the media, and above all, and most dreadful in Israel, that racists do not know what they are doing, and because of this, feel in no way obliged to apologize. So this is some of the words of some of the writers and historians and Native Americans. All right, so docudramas, I'm just going to quickly flash 2 or 3 docudramas. This is a movie which was there was a lot of hue and cry raised for this, Farha and Nakba on Netflix. Israeli protested against them, but yet this movie is there, and this is a telling movie, and there have been a plethora of movies after that. There's this 200 meters, Born in Gaza. Now if you look at this one, Scenes of the Occupation from Gaza, film by Mustafa Abu Ali, 13-minute film. This is 13-minute film, and it was made in 1973, and this film is part of a collection of 16 film reels kept and safeguarded by the members of a Japanese Palestine solidarity group in Tokyo, right? So other people are keeping a record of this. The digital version of the film was produced by Cramp, and the explanation goes further. Then there is another, like 20 Impossibles, Children of Shatila, The Present. I watched this movie, and this is like so heartbreaking. The Salt of this Sea. So all these movies, are the docudramas, are now coming into the now. Again, if you look at this quote here, we are born with a purpose in life and we have to fulfill that purpose. How beautiful a quote, and that's something we tend to forget. So, Trail of Tears, these are Ford Award winning docudramas which document all what happened with the native Indians from 1590s to 1890s, right? And look at this. This is again, there's so many similarities between Native Americans and Palestinians, and even Kashmiri, which I have not discussed, and I would not, because I don't have time. So Broken Treaties, again a book and then a movie, and this is something which we find emerging in today's, right? So now today we have the timeline, and this is like, this movie is features this particular one. It tells us about how the Indian life was before 1491, right? Before 1491, or till 1491, because in 1492, of course, that was Columbus. So Great Indian Nations, another docudrama, again another docudrama. And if you can just look at this, this is this picture on with the small horse and a horseman in this is one of the universities. I forgot the name of the university. Oh yes, Michigan State University. It is a course taught there, and it's like this movie is taught there. This is a small little picture of myself standing in one of the casinos. Now, this is also a big fact about the Native American realms, that their life was actually snatched away from them. If they were fishermen, their fishing habitats were completely destroyed. If they were cultivators, that was completely destroyed. And what were they replaced with? They said that you bring us fur, and we will give you fire water. This alcohol, they used to call them fire water, and they were given fire water, and they, of course, they became intoxicated. And this is one of the casinos I visited when I was at Columbia, and and this, if you can look at this small little wolf on top of this rock, they have made this ambience there. And but the thing is, they have tried to finish off this nation also, but their slogan is, "We shall remain." So now, interestingly, Giles Devers is one of the most veteran lawyers in France. This is the latest, happening, which I suggest in my book also, and I'm sure that most of you would like to buy it. Do buy it, and it would be a good read, inshallah. Who in just 10 days gathered an army of lawyers from the continents of the world to prosecute, Israel for its war crimes against the Palestinians. Lawyer Giles Devers is promising the Israeli occupation with a dark fate, and says to the Palestinians, you did not have anyone to defend you, but now you have an army to defend you in international and national courts. So this can be one of the, ray of hope, or silver lining. I would like to end my presentation with this a small portion from Mahmoud Darwish, one of the national poets, Palestinian national poets, and he wrote this poem in 1988, and it is quoted in Rabinovich's article also. And this was written basically in Arabic, but this is the translation. But it is so powerful that even the translation is good, because I read it in Arabic and then I read it this. It is really a powerful translation. So it says, "Oh, those who pass between fleeting words." This Balfour Declaration that you have come with this, concocted, fragmented piece of paper. Carry your names and be gone. Rid our time of your hours and be gone. Steal what you will from the blueness of the sea and the sand of the memory. Take what pictures you will, so that you understand that which you never will. How a stone from our land builds the ceiling of our sky. Oh, those who pass between the fleeting words, from you the sword, from us the blood, from you the steel and fire, from us our flesh. And isn't it so true? From you to yet another tank, from us stones, from you tear gas, from us rain, above us as above you, our sky and the air. So take your share of our blood and be gone. Go to a dancing party and be gone. As for us, we have to water the martyrs' flowers. As for us, we have to live as we see fit. Oh, those who pass between fleeting words as bitter dust, go where you wish, but do not pass between us like flying insects. For we have work to do in our land. We have wheat to grow, which we water with our bodies' dew. So I would end my presentation here, and I would like to say a few words after this, that basically my research, it traces the trajectory of some mediatic depictions in our recent history and studies what shape it has acquired in these post-truth and postmodern times. This exploration, it further weighs out the existence of reality, truth, or post-truth, and the propagandized rhetoric of right-wing media and their implications. Consequently, this work also discusses some decolonial options that may be helpful in seeking some truthful answers in these post-truth cacophonies. It also examines how factual historical evidence in the context of, Palestine or Kashmir or Native American is problematized. So we need to understand that while Zionism may argue of the purity of Hebrew labor in the context of Palestine or Kashmir, the story may be stating a narrative in the context of Kashmir. The historical facts about Palestine and Kashmir state a different perspective. Likewise, the image of a stereotypical Native American entity and the sad demise of this noble savage increasingly got normalized in the 20th century. The historical and contemporary facts about him is American and Canadian First Nations state a different perspective. Similarly, an objective dig into the understanding of the geopolitics of the world makes us understand the implications of films like Exodus, programs like Bharat Ek Khoj, or the mediatic theoretical models of the vanishing Indian that starts, roughly speaking, from the films like The Indian Was Refought in 1914 or 1925 movie The Vanishing American. These films played a pivotal role in shaping our recent history, while contemporary filmic depictions like Farah or Half Widow about Kashmir 2017 become mediatic encounters and are either made controversial or thrown off the stage of the cyber world. However, building an argument about the growing exploitation of the native populations, today's talk had attempted to discuss that before some contemporary docudramas, the 20th century politics of the film and narrative medias are post-truths that need to be investigated to decolonize our minds. I thank you. I would stop here, and I would welcome any questions if you have any.
Thank you very much, Rabia. It was a very, very informative, talk. And I'm pretty sure our students have learned a lot from it. And one thing I would in particular want to comment on is that, studying the same phenomena or researching the same phenomena or for the same topic from multiple perspectives is what we encourage our students to do. Interdisciplinarity in American studies, and I think this was a perfect example of that. How Dr. Rabia has studied, generally representation of Native Americans or Palestinians, or she hasn't dwelt much on Kashmiri people, but she's commented on that as well. How there is a discourse created in different kinds of texts, which all come together to colonize our mind, as she says that we need to decolonize it now. So that's I found that very interesting, and I'm sure you found it very useful. So, do you have any questions? If you do, please come here and, any questions, any comments? Can you please come here? Please introduce yourself and then ask the question.
Thank you for your presentation. My name is Tariq. Basically, I am doing PhD here in American Studies Center. My question related, you compared with the Native Americans and Palestinians. So what do you think that current situation is going on? The atrocities and what these things, and Gaza is siege and people's migrating. Do you think that it is in a, like you depicting with and comparing with the natives? It is the Western world, currently the America, Britain, France, and these all Western worlds is not supporting the Kashmiris, but the people in Western world is more demonstrating in relatively, and we compare with the Muslim world. In London, more than 3 lakh people, and other in France and elsewhere, they are more demonstrating. Do you think that currently the people and the governments are divided in opposite direction in the West regarding Palestine issue?
Again, thank you so much for that comment, plus it's sort of a question. Now, there are two things, two or three things rather. First of all, see, the Palestine right now has become the point of attention because of the, blatant atrocities that are being committed there. So that is why the people have started talking about them all across, and we have become more aware of the situation. A normal person has become aware of that situation. Earlier on, it wasn't so, right? As for your point that there seems to be a divide in the understanding. So that's something which I have been talking about in my talk, and I've tried to point out that these post-truths, the cacophonies that are generated over the years, over the centuries, they have the same pattern. Right now the Native American entities are not very much divorced from, or separate from the American identity. But how were they subjugated? That's a very fearful story, and this is a question I asked one of the professors at Columbia back in 2018, and I asked him that this is also settler colonialism. America, Colombia itself is on the land of of the Native Americans. So he said yes, but that happened when there was no that was centuries. They took centuries to kill the spirit of the people, but yet it is not killed, and it is still alive, and they have their own ways. There are people, there are different villages, there are different clans who still have their own ways. And Plus, he said that it was before the time of this social media. You are looking at the massacre which is happening in Gaza at this point in time, which is the time of social media. So this is, there's no comparison. I'm not making it a comparison of, the degree, but the comparison is that, yes, the pattern is the same. Now it is more open to the public, though now it is more open to the people around the world. Yet there are narratives that are puncturing the realities, and they are trying to sabotage. There are post-truths who are talking about that, we are targeting Hamas, yet they are not. So their lies are being exposed. You open Twitter, any of these social media platforms, I could not bring any of those things, but yes, with there are big evidences that all that is, false propaganda. But now, since their atrocities have gone beyond any, comparison, that is why, and on the social media, that is why it is like, and yet they're not letting it to go in one direction only, and they are trying to puncture that narrative, which is the state of affairs, which is the factual state of affairs of Palestine. Or even, if you remember, some time back, there was these articles about North Dakota pipeline and South Dakota pipeline, and Native Indians were, raising slogans against that you are doing injustice to the environment itself, right? So, meaning thereby, this is a big environment concern. May it be in any place of the world, may it be Kashmir, may it be Palestine, may it be in America itself. If you deny the actual surviving principles, human principles, you are going to end up in annihilation, and you are going to end your own planet. So it is all interwoven. It starts with this human violation, this human exploitation, this ash. The other day I read this thing that Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the amount of that atomic bomb, or I don't I may be wrong in technicalities, but the amount of the thing used in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that was less as compared to what is being thrown in Gaza. Must have seen those gray faced children all around. Yes. And it is unbearable. It is simply unbearable. And even then they are trying to puncture the factual narrative. But yet we have to see beyond the mainstream media, or the right-wing media rather. As researchers, that's our duty, actually. Yes.
Yeah. Introduce yourself.
Okay. Assalamualaikum, ma'am. My name is Marvi. I am an MPhil student here. And it was a really insightful talk. I enjoyed it a lot as someone who's been following the recent events that are unfolding in Gaza. Through Twitter, basically, I was thinking about how you feel about, this, how the right wing, you sort of touched upon it by the end as well, how the right wing spokespersons are, even challenging the idea of decolonization now. They're saying that, no, there's decolonization, or saying from the river to the sea, is essentially people like Elon Musk. But I thought deplatforming Elon Musk would be weird because he owns one of the biggest platforms. So how do you feel about that? He said that from the river to the sea is essentially a call for genocide, and decolonization itself is a call for genocide. For someone who has been working on decolonization through, your research? How do you feel about that?
It's an ongoing battle, dear. See, of course, if Bible talks about Armageddon, that's going to happen. That is going to come, because when the masses, the right mass, the factual mass, the actual mass, and the propagated and the propagandized narrative, these masses, they're going to grow bigger and bigger and bigger. Of course, there is going to be an Armageddon, and that's what it is going to be. If a person of Elon Musk's stature, or any other person for that matter, if they are saying that it is from this to this, it's like, if you look at this, if South Africa had apartheid, and you are not just saying that apartheid is okay, but you are actually just justifying your atrocities against unarmed civilians. So this is more than what happened in the Holocaust. If that was an atrocity from which we still fear, we still shake, and our hearts break at the sights of those victims of the Holocaust. So how can do we not have any humanity that our side should also break with the Holocaust that is being perpetrated in Palestine right now? Or less into the media, but in Kashmir also, since I've read it and I'm following it also, it's almost the same, except for the fact that now Gaza is being bombed further. So yes, it is going to be an Armageddon, and the masses are going to keep on growing. So it's what side we are going to take is up to us.
Thank you so much.
This McIntyre, his book, What Liberal Media. I can give you, or Ma'am Aisha later on, the title itself, the complete title, McIntyre's book, the What Liberal Media. He's written this book. What liberal media are you talking about? There's no liberal media. Everything is hijacked, right? So he's like, and this post-truth, the post-truth, the bombardment of post-truths that are we are being still, like you just mentioned one.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rabia. Thank you very much. I would request you to share the names of the films and the docudramas that you've talked about in your presentation, and I think most of the students would be interested in watching some of those. So if you could share those with me, I'll pass them on to the students. If you were here in person, we would have offered you tea, and we would have given you a shield as well, but those are due. I would like to end with inviting Dr. Behraman Shah. He's in charge Area Study Center, to say a few words, concluding comments. And once again, your book is here, and we are purchasing it for the library, and it's on discounted rate. So if anybody else wants to.
Okay, can I just make a small little comment before?
She wants to make
Can I say?
Yes, Rabia.
I will. I'm having this recorded. I will share the whole recording, and the students can see whatever the movies they want to. Of course.
Okay,
some of them, most of them are on Netflix. Some of them are on YouTube, so they would be able to find it, I'm sure, inshallah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rabi Amir. This is Behraman Shah, in charge Area Study Center.
My honor, sir.
So, I hope the fates of the the Indians and the Palestinians are not the same, because we had a Fulbright scholar with us in September and October, Dr. Christopher Harrington. So he interacted with our students here, and he had a couple of seminars. So all he was talking about how Red Indians were, exterminated or dropped down from that ascendancy and position of power, and how they were, stereotyped and discriminated in depictions in literature and movies. So in your talk about how they were depicted in literature and films. So over 20th century, we had these depictions mostly in literature, but towards the end of 20th century, we saw films, taking power from literature. And that's why after 9/11, a group of directors, they were asked by the White House to, come and brief them how someone like, the perpetrators of 9/11 could come up with such a, strange idea to attack the US. Though this was depicted in literature as well, there is this 1975 novel by the name of Black Sunday, and that novel somehow depicted a 9/11 like attack. But if we look at the movies during the 1990s, they, not truly, but somehow depicted something like 9/11. So towards the end of the 20th century, we saw the ascendancy of movies and films, because they were more imaginative and they were more open and flexible than literature. And since it's mostly accessible to large populations all over the world, and as you talked about, the current crisis going on in Palestine, so everyone is talking about it. But there have been wars in the past in Palestine, and they were more gruesome than the present one. But no one talks about it because it was mostly controlled by the Western media, and it wasn't that much reported. But the current one is accessible to large populations. That's why everyone is talking about it. So in 1967, we had the Six-Day War between Israel and the Arab states, and 20,000 people were killed in 6 days. Right now, we have 13,000 deaths after October 7. And then we had a 1973 war between Israel and Palestine, but no one knows about it. It's called Yom Kippur, if you have heard the name.
Yes, of course.
Yes. So last week there was a faculty here in QUAID-I-AZAM University, and he was preparing for something, and he asked me about Edward Said. And he was like, "Do you know about him?" I said, "Well, that's the only scholar I know." And I told him that he was talking about this Arab-Israeli conflict since day one. But we don't read. Our people, they don't read. That's why they don't know about a lot of issues. So it was nice that you brought movies into the discussion, and how movies have, films have, docudramas have more to, resist this discourse of colonization. And because these are like literature and movies, they are used by both the colonizer and the imperialist against indigenous populations, and how these indigenous populations could respond to and resist those narratives and those stereotypes. So you talked about it beautifully, so we are thankful to you. And we'll continue, sharing ideas, and our students, they can keep in touch with you and interact with you. So thank you for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity, sir. Thank you. I'm really gratified.
Thank you very much, Rabia. So please do share the recording, and I'll share it
Inshallah,
with the
I
students.
will. Thank you, Dr.
right.
Aisha and Dr. Beraman and dear students, and thank you everyone for giving me this opportunity to talk here.
Hopefully, we will see you in person once you're back.
Inshallah, inshallah, inshallah.
Okay,
Thank you.
Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.